Hey guys, Curtis Alexander. In this video, I want to talk about how to address if you're beginning to lose your hair. Man or woman, doesn't matter. This is a question I got recently from a viewer, and what better person to answer this question than a bald guy, right? But the point I want to get across in the video is if I had the information I'm going to share with you 20 years ago, I'm not sure that I would have lost my hair to the extent I did or as fast as I did. I began to lose my hair in my early 20s. So I want to save you some of that agony. So I want to hop right into it. First of all, my first piece of advice to this person: ignore supplements and medications. There's a ton of money in it for the companies. I get that. I don't have an issue with it, but they're not really addressing the root cause. And that's my opinion. But I just don't see that the evidence exists that they're really doing a lot of good. Instead, I'd kind of flip that script a little bit. And we have to start thinking about the root cause. And I'm going to throw some facts at you that I think will be a little bit eye-opening, okay? So first of all, we have evidence now that metabolic diseases are linked to hair loss. What are metabolic diseases? Things like diabetes and insulin resistance. Cancer can be metabolic. Even things like Parkinson's, we believe, may be metabolic. So some of these diseases can be linked to your metabolic function, to how much energy you can produce and overall metabolic health. Now, another thing, they've looked at hair follicles that have aged. Now, follicular aging can mean your hair is graying, which mine did very early, or that you're losing your hair. That's follicular aging. That has been linked to decreased metabolic function. Decreased metabolic function can be something like low thyroid. That's really the definition of low metabolic function. They've also looked at cadavers that were bald versus ones that were not bald. And they found when they dissected the cadavers that the ones who were bald had more calcification on the blood supply to the surface of the scalp that supplied the blood flow to the hair follicles. And you can see this happen. You can have something called mucopolysaccharides. They can build up, they can become higher in low metabolic states, particularly in people with low thyroid. So these mucopolysaccharides build up, they calcify, and they can actually pinch off blood supply. They saw this in cadavers. They've taken scalp cultures from people who were balding, and they provided those cultures in a lab with more blood flow, and that blood flow resulted in significant amount of hair growth, up to 80 to 90%. And finally, I want you to think about pregnant women. Okay, what if you've been around a pregnant woman? One of the things you often hear is like, man, when I was pregnant, my hair grew like crazy. Once I delivered the baby, they'll even lose hair. It thins out a little bit. And what's going on is when you're pregnant, your progesterone levels rise. So there's this hair growth. When the baby's delivered, progesterone drops, estrogen increases. Estrogen is not good for the metabolism. That doesn't make estrogen bad overall. Sometimes when I say these things, people take it as it's either good or bad type thing. But we see this hair growth during pregnancy due to hormones. So what this comes back to, what my advice to this person was, is you have to focus on your nutrition. Okay, you have to eat in a way, you have to live in a way that supports a healthy metabolism. What does that mean? Well, you have to eat nutrient-rich whole foods. You have enzymes that run the processes that produce your hormones that allow some of these things like progesterone to increase in testosterone. But for that to happen, they require minerals and nutrients for those enzymatic reactions to actually take place. The bottom line is you need a nutrient-rich whole food diet. You need ample protein. You need good saturated fats, not polyunsaturated fats, not seed oils. Those are anti-metabolic. And you need to have good natural carbohydrate sources. A lot of times you can see people go on extreme diets. I was one of them and experienced hair loss. I experienced hair loss early on and graying early on. I believe there was probably a genetic component, although not all the men in my family are bald. But my diet was terrible. Lots of processed foods, lots of seed oils, not enough protein, not good fats. The carb sources I had weren't that good. But then I went down the extreme diet route, and that probably made it worse because I was getting no carbohydrates. I was fasting. It wasn't fueling my body. Now, all this sounds really simple, and I'm going to put a link in the description below, but all this comes from, and not all of it, but a lot of this comes from a really good book by Danny Roddy called Hair Like a Fox. I'll put a link to it. It's inexpensive. If you're struggling with this issue, I would encourage you to read it. It goes into much more depth on what's going on with hair loss and baldness. Again, whether you're man or woman, it's a book you definitely want to read. Link in the description. So is the link to my free checklist, my email list. I talk about this stuff in much more depth there. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to go get that, curtis-alexander.com. Okay, hope this was helpful, you guys. See you in the next one. Thank you.